Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host, co-founder, Mr. Sean Francis. I am Brian Altunian, and today's episode is fascinating. It's going to be a fascinating subject. We are learning as parents in this new paradigm of after diagnosis of a child with special needs, how to live I want to say normal, but that's not the right word, atypical life, and needing to find resources and other forms of support. And today's guest is going to be talking about that. So stay tuned for another episode of Just Two Dads. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Just Two Dads. I think we are episode 150. Sean, is that correct? Is it 150?
That's correct. That is correct.
150. With Sean Francis, I am Brian Altunian. We started this process about a little over 3 years ago. And we wanted to create a platform to shine a spotlight on folks who are doing amazing things for the special needs community, because as dads, when our children were diagnosed a number of years ago, 15 to 25 years ago, the access to resources was fairly limited, or at least our knowledge of the resources available was fairly limited. And so we wanted to give an opportunity to folks who are doing amazing things. Today's guest is going to be no exception, and you're going to hear a great story. We're also talking about how different cultures and communities obviously also deal with things such as autism and other neurodiverse issues. So before we get to our guests, just want to thank everybody who's catching us live on Facebook. Put some comments in there. Joe, I see you're here already. Hello, welcome. And if you're catching us after the fact on our YouTube channel, please subscribe and like and leave messages for us there, or you can email us at wearejusttwodads@gmail.com. I've already catching us on podcasts wherever you're catching podcasts. Thank you for making us part of your listening day. And same to those folks down in the U.S. Virgin Islands on WSTX AM radio. Thank you, family, for being a part of what we're doing and helping spread the word. And really, it's been, I think, a couple of weeks since we've had a guest. So we're really excited about today's guest. And before we get to her, I'm just going to throw it over to Sean Francis to say good morning. Sean, I feel like I haven't talked to you in weeks too. It's bizarre.
It's been a while. There's been a lot going on. But enough about me and anything else. As much as always, and maybe even more so, I just want to make sure that we give our light and moment to our guest. Our guest today is someone who is a warrior personified. Sometimes I feel like that just saying that just gets so rote and cliche, and you're just saying it, over and over. But the people that we come across, are just that. Warriors and heroes. And as much as you think your situation is so unique and that you're going through something nobody knows or can understand, you meet someone, get a little familiar with their battle, just a little, you have so much appreciation for their example, what they do, and your own battle, and realize that you're not alone. And our guest today is someone who is like I said, a warrior personified. She started the first development center called the Child Development Center, the first multidisciplinary therapy center for children with autism in the nation of, and you can tell me, Hasna, if I'm pronouncing it correct, because I've heard Qatar, and then I've heard Qatar after. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it's Qatar.
Qatar,
yeah. And so that alone says, a whole lot. Being able to do that and swim upstream in the greatest definition. But we're going to get into all of those things. But welcome to the show, warrior personified, Hasna Nada. Welcome, Hasna.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's
great
to be here, and it's great to connect with like-minded parents that are also, putting out their talents to support the community. And I love that. And I think that's what unifies a lot of us, the sharing of resources.
Thank you. Yeah, we believe that, anything that reminds people that they're not alone is immeasurable in value. So as I always say at this point in the show, you may not see yourself as a hero, but here to happily tell you that you're wrong, and all heroes have superpowers, and their story determines how those powers came to be. So why don't we start with that with yourself? Because I know the time is going to go by fast, and we're going to find ourselves running out of enough time for your story, but let's squeeze in as much as we can.
I have a quite diverse story. I am born in the US, but I lived in Europe actually between Switzerland and Italy, on the Italian border. So it's even that is a particular situation for 25 years. After that, I am now, I don't want to say happily, but I'm definitely comfortably divorced, as in I'm in a good place. It was a conscious choice, and it was what I needed to do. And I've been in LA. It's my second year, complete big change for me and my kids, but that's it in a nutshell. Definitely been exposed to a lot of languages. I do speak 5. I never quite put them to use the past few years.
Maybe having some technical
She froze.
issues.
Yeah,
She's frozen.
You
froze on us a little bit there.
You froze just for a minute there. But here's the other thing. Your background is so diverse that I had to pick and choose what I was going to share and everything. But one of the areas that has me, full of the most respect for you, in addition to what you mentioned, talking about, making a conscious choice to, to go through with a divorce that is in the best interest of you and your children. She is a mother of 4, including 2 of her children that are on the spectrum. So tell us a little bit about, the type of environment that you grew up in, because, how we're supported or lack thereof has everything to do with how we face our child's diagnosis when that time comes.
I mean, it was definitely different timing. I'm 45 years of age and not in no way proud of that. So I have seen shit. I grew up, I don't keep freezing, but I'm back now. Yeah. I don't know if it's me or who it is, but so my education was still very, very conformist, as in there was no attention to learning differences, you were either this or that. We definitely were not exposed to as much to disabilities or to differences in our time. Of course, as empathetic people, it's something we haven't ignored. But when it happened to me, I didn't think that I had the tools to accept it right away. I was very hyper-focused on changing it and doing something about it, catching the train. I think that's also a common experience amongst us parents, where it's like, he's not going to fit in. How is his life altered? But then we tend to forget that there's a whole process of grief happening within us, and that's the thing, is that if the battery is low, if the cup is empty, you have nothing to give. So we're trying to get all that done with a cup. So eventually, we do hit all the 5 stages of depression. I think what was very helpful was unlearning a lot of what I learned and learn anew. But I think that's not just for our journey with our kids.
Right. So, and as I mentioned before, I told you we would go as deep or as shallow as you wish with your story, and as detailed or skim, whatever it is you want to do. But as much as you're willing to or comfortable sharing, tell us then, so you're raised in this environment where at the very least, it seems like it didn't necessarily prepare you for any of your children's diagnosis. I don't know what kind of preparation there is for that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't them what they could, but they were first generation. Oh, is it gone again? First generation immigrants, and those generations, they stick to They want to keep, a lot of, their identity. At the same time, I was first generation going to an Italian school and a Swiss school and first generation Arab. So it was, there was a lot of unpacking for me. And so it was a process. It was a process to find my own and I don't have to belong to either. I could totally belong to. I can't tell you it was roses. No, it's okay. Please ask, please.
Yeah. Okay. So you're raised in Europe, and then at some point you got to higher education. I'm assuming just because of your varied background and the things that you did. Tell us about what that was like then.
So I mean, higher education, I studied, don't even ask me why, political science and economics with my bachelor. I think at the time I just felt like, I needed to do something. I don't think, as much as it has taught me, I don't think that was my passion. The world is too ugly. So I prefer to, on a micro level. And then I did, actually about 5 back to USC special ed just for my own and involved student. So and not that I plan to be how to get the attention of these students, how to understand what our teachers should do with our kids. So that puts me at a very especially I have information very helpful.
Let me know if I missed anything. I'm sorry, you're freezing a little bit, and sometimes that's just the way the internet connection works when we do this, because we had no problems before going live. So that's not anybody's fault, just what is. But I think you mentioned that you got yourself
PhD in special ed.
No,
PhD in special ed.
Master's, not PhD. I'm not a doctor yet. It is in my
gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
But a master's in special
education.
It's a MAT. It's a teaching master for teachers, actually. So I was one of the few people that didn't plan to teach, but I plan to
teach teachers.
Understand the process, and also there was about a year of student teaching. So I was teaching at my kids' school at the time, and differentiating and whatnot, and it was really great to be in a teacher's shoes and really see those processes happen. It was a beautiful. I look at it as research for me, but it also really helped me understand how our kids learn. And more than that is how much is the educational system serving them, and what can be done. What can be done? Luckily for me, it was here at USC, so it was all California, almost like the system. I know so much about. Okay, it's okay. We just keep going. We just ignore it.
We just keep going.
Yeah. That's
we'll fill in holes, I think, if we can.
But that's part of doing.
So education is. I think it's very, and you don't have to go to school to be educated, but we have everything we can access on our finger. Every education is powerful. When
my reason for asking about it is because it's you go to college, at some point, you meet your husband. I know enough to know that you got married, and your marriage is what led you to Qatar. So you're in Qatar, your child gets diagnosed. It's one thing to say, I'm going to learn as much as I can and be an advocate for my child. It is another thing to develop an entity that is the first in its region for others. So tell us about that and how that came to be, because that's another level.
I did actually meet my husband about 5 years actually after working in foreign exchange and a proper treasury of a multinational in Switzerland the first 5 years, and then I did get married. That's a whole other story for another day. But I got married and moved to Qatar in 2003, which was, let's say, in its infancy, but there was definitely very fast development happening at the time. And Faisal was born in 2007. I have been an employee. I mean, I've been working since the day I graduated, very driven, but really in the comfort of the 9 to 5, and life is good and weekends are fun, nothing to think about until Monday, and that was perfect. And then in Qatar, I did the same thing for a few years, and then by 2010, it was obvious that just different. He was just so different. I couldn't make sense of it. I kept hoping he would snap out of it or learn. Grouping, and finally the word that kept coming up was that was 13 years ago. At the time, the word autism was so scary, and I keep saying the only reason it was so scary was because it was always accompanied by the lifelong condition. The lifelong bit was I couldn't digest that. It was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and he's like anything I could have, so that's when the rush for remediation comes, and we're like, what can we do? What can we get? Let's run early intervention. And we did. I went out of my way. Again, and then there were no centers, nothing, no support at the time. It was very hard to get a diagnosis for me. It took about 3 years, finally got one. I had to travel to the US to get one because Faisal presented quite differently. And so I didn't get a formal diagnosis until he was 6, because I was already doing everything I could, like speech therapy and whatnot. Yeah. And he presented differently. They would say, oh, he has imaginary play and so forth, but he doesn't have this. And, they're following a checkbook. And this is what I feel has changed so much over the years, that it's a checklist, is that, autism doesn't necessarily just have to, you have to hit a score. It's not math. It's not math, because Faisal always was close to qualifying for being on the spectrum, but he would be a few points below. So
yeah.
So of course, doctors tell me this, and I'm like, stick to my ears, because now he's not autistic, and I'm trying to.
And I think I'll fill in where I can, especially with our technical challenges here today. But this is where the benefit comes. For those that don't know, Hasna and I met because her son Faisal is in the same class with my son Elijah. And anyone that follows me or the show, on social media, and I try to keep my consciousness, not just keep it high, but continue to raise it. Always be curious about other people's shoes. And yet I still fall victim to my own space. And meeting Faisal is a great example of that, because I'm used to the manner in which Elijah presents as a result of his diagnosis of autism. Whereas when he communicates, there will be like what sounds like a full stream of consciousness or communication with gaps in words. Whereas when Faisal communicates with you, the consciousness is like the stream is constant. And it's only now that I realize that it's so constant that where it might present in his case is that he may not have a boundary, especially if he likes you. He's gonna, get really close and just greet you like right away. And he knows right away whether he likes you or he doesn't. And that is the thing for those that are listening to pay attention to, and always remember, if your child is on the spectrum, just know that whatever your experience is with your child, there are shared pieces of it, but there are pieces of it that are specific to your child's situation as well, that is very different from that of which somebody else may present. And then if you're not familiar with the spectrum, these are the types of nuggets that will prevent you from saying things like, well, he doesn't look like it. It's funny. I didn't think that. He doesn't look like he has autism. Well, that's because there is no one look. And anything, again, that teaches us that we're not alone and of our differences, as well as the things that celebrate us, is worthwhile. And I just thought that was worth pointing out. But it's still just such a large undertaking to create this entity. Well, to do it, period. It's one thing to do it here where there's some kind of support, but to do it in a country where it doesn't exist and you plant a big old flag.
To be honest, it feels like almost like a divine thing. I don't, I didn't have the resources. I definitely didn't have the money. Funny, I applied for this, it's like this interest-free loan the government provide, this bank, Qatar Development Bank. It was a program for entrepreneurship. And so my research happened by meeting other community members, other parents, and sharing the same therapist who was spending all day driving from home to home to home to home to do a 1 hour. And then speech therapy, we would drive. And then there were a few, not too many. And this was born out of a conversation after a session with, I think it was speech or behavior, with my son's therapist. And we're like, God, if only we could have one roof to do all of this, so I can get all of this on a consistent basis and not drive all day, and also meet parents in the waiting room. It's like we spoke it into existence, because later I walked into this office. Somebody advised me, they'll give you entrepreneurship ideas, and they told me about this program. And I did this business plan with the best I knew. The numbers made sense. The demand made sense. I already knew a little bit of the market. I knew that autism was definitely, at least diagnoses were going up. And of course, the more involved you are, the more you see. And ultimately, I turned in this piece of paper thinking, hopefully, most likely, it won't see the day of light, but I was very happy. And then I got a call 3 days later, and once I got the loan, a few weeks later, I was like, oh God, now there's no choice.
No, I have to do it.
I have to do it.
Anyway,
Wow.
then everything moved like a domino. It was really interesting. That's why I say it was divine. I don't tell you that was, of course, now it's been 10 years, where actually November will be 10 years. So I can tell you, yes, it's definitely, there's demand for this. It's definitely healthy business and whatnot. Again, keeping the balance between being compassionate and being accessible, but also being of quality, because there's a lot of people that, and I don't want to say people, but there's definitely so many options, and some can be, they don't have the science behind them, or they don't have the compassion, or so that was really the struggle for us. How do we keep this? How do we attract talented therapists, professionals, and provide good packages that would have them, completely committed, and at the same time we don't go under? How do we support the families? How do we accept insurance? What permits do we need? And so on. Operationally, clinically, really, it's been amazing. I would say hundreds of kids have used our services, have passed through CDC. But many more centers have opened in the years, which we collaborate with and support, because really it's such a big, there's so much demand that there's definitely work for everyone. So I try not to compete with the local competition. It's great. The more we see. Go for it.
No, I was going to say, so that's the Child Development Center. You since left Qatar, you're in Los Angeles. So does the Child Development Center still exist in
Yes,
Qatar?
and I run it from here.
Oh, wow.
We live in an age where, thankfully, we are connected enough, and I have very solid and great people that have been with me for years supporting. And, I can't tell you we haven't had our challenges, but it taught me a lot also to be able to, manage from across the world, and at the same time work on other projects. That I would say that's my first real jump into this. But we've, for example, with 2 other moms, we all met at my center. We've opened this. It's a small retail store, but it has a lot of pop-up for therapy tools, because over there it was very difficult to find special seats. Everybody was ordering on Amazon and waiting for days, and so we just And that goes from like chewy tubes to sensory blankets to weight blankets to headphones so that's been running for about 6 years. Again, small, but how do you say it? A big spiritual currency, I think. So that's really what it is. Like one initiative will lead to another. 2 years ago, the year that I left Qatar was, we're like, oh God, our kids don't have activities. We need to come up with something. They don't have after school. They get kicked out because the coaches don't know. So we did the Life Skills Hub. Again, two therapists, one mother, like always somebody from the community. And I've launched it with them and let them manage it. And it's great. It's not just for autism, obviously, but it's doing camps, it's doing craft, it's doing. They have a lot of even life skills, some vocational, and that's what it is. I think creativity, when you channel your pain and what you perceive as trauma, and it is trauma. I mean, it's definitely there's definitely a big element of grief in our journey. When you channel that into ideas, then you can be as creative as possible. And
definitely,
and what are you good at? How can you serve? And that's what it comes down to. And then, like you mentioned, Learn Autism. Learn Autism was during COVID. Yeah, during COVID.
Great. That was my next question. How we go from child development to learning?
I have a great connection with Dr. Stephen Shore. He's an autistic self-advocate and professor in New York. And I've brought him for several symposiums, conferences. We've had a 10-year relationship. And during COVID, a little before actually, we were like, God, there's no access to what is the most important thing? I said, information. For a parent is information, especially when you don't know what to do, that you're going to get lost in a sea of Google searches or of, so we thought about, doing this video catalog of just the basics of everything. I'm hoping to have more time to add more content to it and more ideas, but that's what it was born on, born from. How do you put your child to sleep? How do you deal with tantrums? All of these answered by several professionals from around the world, a whole section on IEPs. It is the IEP, and we try to be as diverse as possible. Like we also had the lawyer that did that series on the platform, on the app, is a autistic lawyer based in Boston, and he breaks down the IDEA law in very simplified terms for all of us to understand. What does it look like? What are your rights? What's an advocate? And so forth. The best way we can arm ourselves is through information. So
okay,
so great about that is that even family members that aren't, in the house with the child can learn what their family members are going through, right?
Absolutely.
Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, whatever, they can learn, get some detail, get some insight. Yeah. Sometimes when you're observing, you don't even I don't even know how I would deal with this particular situation. How do I deal with, with a tantrum? I don't want to call it a tantrum, but when a breakdown of some kind.
Meltdown.
Yeah.
Meltdown.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So I find it fascinating that there's a resource. We always talk about looking for resources for people to be able to access, right? So amazing. Love that. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No. I'm still I'm looking for words. I wasn't trying to get a word in edgewise. I was trying to look for a word because I like to pride myself on doing a minimal amount of, research or preparation for each of our episodes. And it's easy to take that for granted if you know a guest beforehand. And there's a certain amount of that got taken for granted, not looking at the site. When you talk about, because I'm scrolling around it right now, and this is why it's on the screen, and I encourage everyone to go and take a look. If you have compassion for other people and you are not familiar with autism, where would you go to learn about stepping in somebody else's shoes? This is a great resource for that. If your diagnosis is new and you're my child's been diagnosed, now what? This is a great resource. And now it got my wheels turning in terms of the whole idea of putting something someplace that brings people together, and that unity is not limited to autism or special needs, period. That's just that is
beautiful.
it's something else. And I had no
That's
idea
beautiful.
what we had on our hands having you here. I really didn't.
Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's a work in process. I mean, it was, again, it was couple families, Dr. Shore, and all amazing people we've worked with, sometimes internationally, like Dr. Deborah Beckham for speech therapy. One of our mothers flew to Florida for her child to spend the summer. And when we suggested she be a part of this, she was ecstatic. And those are the people and we were like so honored that she would be on our platform, but she was beyond happy. And she said, finally, this information needs to be accessible. And this is information that is accessible. It is all over Google, but how do you streamline it? And so we try to have different points of view, having neurodiverse speaker as well, even very important to me. And I do have Russell Lehman, another autistic. There's a lot of autistic representation on the platform, speaking about the social emotional part of growing up autistic, the trauma, the OCD, and sometimes it's very raw. And again, this platform is a work in progress. It isn't free to the world because we wanted just to give access, and it's not something difficult to maintain. Of course, we would love one day to be able to raise the funds to upgrade it to higher levels, that it looks amazing. But this is what we could do, and it has several thousand users actually around the world that access it, and would be great to have other resources on there to continue to add. We tried to cover topics like dating, again, maybe on a surface level that could go, but money, just putting it out in the universe, doing it serious with you, Sean, or with you, with whatever that would be amazing. Just educating people, because education, first of all, it's free. And second of all, it's accessible. And if it can be taught in the language that we all understand, there's no black and white, like we know exactly what to do. And we are collectively building a better world for our kids rather than changing our kids to fit the world. And that's a change in paradigm that happened. That's a change in paradigm that happened in 10 years. Thank you,
Sean.
He was running on his phone, and I was pulling it up on my iPad. So
go to Google.
Amazing
go
resource.
to Google Play. Go to your app store. Download the app. And here's the thing: like you just said something that is key. Learning is free. Yeah, learning is free, but ignorance is expensive.
Very
so
true.
so yeah. I'm blown away.
Amazing research. I had no idea how that. Again, this is why we love doing this podcast, because we get to provide, a little bit of a spotlight, but also, for us as parents to know that these resources do exist. We're as much fans and in the audience as we are hosting this thing. So and it's funny because Sean and I do this. We do this live because we love the experience, the organic experience of life as it happens. And he joked about it. We have had a lot going on the last couple of weeks. I didn't do a lot of research. And so as you're talking, I'm like, oh, let's take a look at the site. And I'm blown away by how much material you have on here, how much is available. And like, we know a ton of people, families of, with children on the spectrum, like, I'm literally like messaging people as we're talking.
Let me tell you, this is
incredible.
This is like meeting some Hasna. We've known each other now for maybe 2 months, the beginning of the school year, right?
Yeah.
This is like meeting someone, and they say to you, you're having a conversation, and they say, "Yeah, I have a car. I have a nice car." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then one day they just show you the car. They don't even show you the car. You see the car because they pull up in it one day, and they're not even trying to impress you with the car. It's completely being undersold. And you look at it, and it's like some concept car that has like a house within it and a butler and it's electric and it doesn't need to charge. I mean, you have undersold what this is here. I'm just blown away.
Thank you. No, honestly, thank you for your words. I do hope to give more access and more information. I think that's something, like I said, it's not when we consciously decided to make this free, because it just made sense for this to be free, because this is everybody's contribution, or at least our partners and whoever, to more awareness. And of course, I mean, where I see it, I have a vision for it. We definitely would like, but I think once we have the numbers of we can then reinvest in creating more content, upgrading the content, even having it in different languages. I think the one thing that the entire planet has access to is a smartphone, or at least the majority, let's say, even in remote areas. And really, it's funny because we have a lot of downloads in India. It's interesting, the parts that where there isn't a lot of access. We have in Africa as well. I mean, those are the areas where you won't even know, like forget getting a diagnosis, but even you're just left to your own devices. So what do you do? Just like COVID taught us, what do? We just teach ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's little things, if you start to understand the meltdown, you look at it differently. Also looking at our kids on a human level, like they also have feelings. They're not just a behavior. It's not just about shutting them up. What are they feeling right now? Can you imagine what they feel, not being able to express, and we seem to also forget all that. So I'm very big on social emotional learning. I think discovering mindfulness changed my life. I meditate on a regular basis. I need to do more these days, but I definitely believe in finding our center and operating from there. Yeah.
Oh, most definitely. I think it's so beautiful, and you echoed my thoughts already, because I'm already thinking, like, how can we be a part of that? How can we contribute to the mission that this app has intended? And I heard something yesterday on a podcast that just shed new light on a familiar thought for me, which is that two things. I've heard that we are not our thoughts, right? In other words, if you were to blurt out every thought that you ever had, people would really, you know what I mean? So that says several things there. It's normal to have thoughts that are outside of things that you would ever do or say, number one. And then two, we don't need to believe everything that we think, right? And
absolutely.
And all of those things are huge when we get confused into thinking that our children are their behavior. Our behavior is not necessarily who we are, especially if we don't know why one is behaving in the manner in which they are. And at the same time, one of our guests said something to me. He said something to us that I've just observed always, which is that behavior is language too. And if one lacks verbal language, whether they're nonverbal or can't quite group the words together, they're going to communicate with behavior anyway. And that's just another example of how, again, we have more in common than we do otherwise. It's just, I wasn't prepared for this level of appreciation. I really wasn't.
It's amazing.
Else.
It really, this is great. And also, I'm just going to say, you sort of downplayed this a little.
Sort of. That's why I gave the car. That's why I gave the car analogy. She's like, "Yeah, I have a car."
Yeah.
She didn't tell me that the car flies.
I hope it fly. I mean, and I think it really comes down to just navigating and it's not. I always feel like Faisal was supposed to be my at least that's what it felt like. Why me? My greatest pain, my greatest trauma. I remember those years I could barely function, and especially in the beginning, and just felt enormous amounts of grief. But then out of that, look what Faisal was behind. Look how many initiatives and how much, when you alchemize your pain, and pain becomes creativity. And again, I say this, I know you're both doing the same thing with your knowledge, with what you have. And that's what it comes down to. And really all these projects, I keep thinking, happened because of community, happened because people have come together and have discussed and have talked, and ideas. And that's how ideas are born. When you're sitting alone in your depression and just wondering why me, and choosing not to wake up in the morning, which fair enough, I don't do sometimes. I can't get out of bed. And I'm not Superwoman for sure. And it happens, and we must accept it and just ride the waves. But ultimately, so much can come out of what we perceive as our pain, which is opportunities. And then from there, you'll meet more people and you don't know where you'll go. And we're always following a path that was set out for us in so many ways, because I don't know how you feel, but I feel like instead of saying, why me? I say, okay, I was chosen. There's a mission here, so I'm gonna, ride along and not be afraid. And again, oh my God, the insecurities doing Learn Autism, and it's not gonna this, and there's too much. And then it was like, we're just gonna put, especially when we decided it's gonna be a free resource, it was so liberating. It was like, we're just gonna put it out there for the world, and it doesn't have to, and it was. There's a lot of, I named that before spiritual currency, but I think a lot of that means that it's not just what you make monetarily. It's also the ripple blessings that happen to you. And
definitely.
Yeah, so it's all an ongoing journey. I would love to continue to work in media for sure, because I think media is the future. I think we need more documentaries. I do have one in mind that is in its very early inception, but I would love to document more about the trauma in autistic individuals, their, not ours, the journey, the resilience, like just that process. I feel like we haven't spoken enough about it, how they feel. Like,
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, and for anybody observing, again, if you have any idea, this is a great example because you didn't intentionally downplay it. You just did what you thought was natural. And maybe you know what, I guess it is a pretty amazing thing, this Learn Autism that we've created. That's where, just like when we meet people, like we just have this idea to do this show, you meet someone and they hear about the show or our initiative with financial education and literacy for special needs families, and like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And you kind of go, I guess it is. But it's when we do the show live, there's a little audio clip that goes out that will generally promote it. I'm going to take the time to not just have that take place, but actually, just let people know, here is a free resource. This is where you need to go. And guide them not just to the show, but to the website and the app. I'm still trying to absorb it all. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm also going to suggest, Hasna, and you probably have thought about this, but you ought to consider a marketplace as well, because we have, we've had guests on here who have, autism parents and folks with other special needs issues that have written books, that do have films, that do have other kinds of material that can be available to support the community.
I would love any suggestion. I mean, I would love any, again, this is part of it, is that I'm definitely, since I moved here for different reasons. I mean, some of them, personal, as in, I just want it to be in a place where I can just be, and I can just be able to, express myself in different ways, and also, different opportunities for my kids, for sure. And I didn't have to fight every day for their education. And that was a big part of it. And just to get the basics. And again, as the world is changing, it's a process. So I'm not saying it's worse here or it's worse there. It's just what I needed to do. It's just what I needed to do at that time. It is possible to do multiple things, for sure. And I'm very appreciative. Definitely would love any advice, or again, I do what we can with the resources I have, and so do all my partners and colleagues. So I definitely thought there was something in providing information, because I needed information. I needed so much information, and there was too much information. I needed it compressed. Yeah. I needed small videos. I needed on each topic, and that's something I needed for myself. So again, I was, and the same with like the Child Development Center. I needed the services. So we are our own clients. So what better research? What better research?
That
for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Go ahead. So excited. I know that when we deal with it, the idea of sitting down and reading a long book or watching an hour and a half, we like, I can't even fathom separating the time to be able to sit and devote my attention to that. I need it in bite-sized pieces, and sometimes it's a lot to consume, right? It's a lot to take in, and you got to have, you know, a way to break it up, and again, knowing that the resources are there that's available. So I'm with you. We're on the same page.
It's awesome. We always say during this show, there's so many things we've discovered during the show, which is, you know, anything that affects the general community affects the neurodivergent or special needs community 10 times as much. And the big theme that has been playing in my head and become a, you know, mantra that, you know, everything I post or think lately is, which is that no one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save us. And again, if that applies to the general population, it applies to parents and caregivers of those with special needs, not even 10 times, maybe 50 times more. No one is coming to save us but us. And then the other thing is that for in order for us to thrive, you know, in terms of our financial wellness, our physical wellness, our mental wellness, our emotional wellness, we have to have spiritual wellness. We need to have partnerships and participate. We don't turn that over to somebody else. Your doctor is somebody with whom you're partnering. I don't care how many degrees they have or what the case might be. So we have to listen to our bodies and be able to tell them what it is that we're going through. And if you're not exchanging energy, then maybe you need to find another doctor. And what you've done here is you decided my child needs A, B, and C, and I need D, E, and F. It's not here. Let me create it. You can't be a warrior and a warrior at the same time. You can't be the victor or the victim. I mean, you have to be one of the two. And so your example of just all of those things, just, I don't know. I'm literally, I'm taking these notes and I'm blown away. And that's the great thing about doing this show is you're like, you figure you're going to meet great people, and you know, but when you do, and the level of value is exceeded, like we were talking the other day, we had the nerve to we did a summit 2 years ago. It was a 2-day event. We're gearing up to do another one, and you have to be a part of it.
Absolutely, I would love to help out also. I would love that. I mean, collaborations are. Wow, like, and especially when we are coming together for a shared, if you think about it, like just this experience, like we're already connected because of it, all of us, everywhere in the world, you know, beyond anything that is happening or all the other differences, we are connected through this experience. So we're only going to be able, so we are working together or on, you know, just, and what we can foster through these connections, the ideas that can become. I mean, we really are the cycle breakers. We're also the people planting seeds, and that's great because you know you plant these seeds 10 years from now. You see something different. If everybody's doing the same, or a lot of us are doing the same, there is change. We've observed change. Now we're hoping for more, especially as our kids are into adulthood. My shift I feel like I've done a lot in early childhood. Now my shift is in adulthood. What happens next, you know? And
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a lot. I think when we're done, we're gonna and Sean and I are gonna talk about this because we've got the list of resources of folks that we've had on the program and folks that we've been in conversation with, and it's significant. We definitely need to connect you to a bunch of those resources now. Filmmakers, again, authors, creatives, and people who are also parents, because it's where 1 + 1 = 10. And this we do this all the time because for us it's developing a net that's broad, or a web, if you will, of resources where people can piggyback. We stand on shoulders of giants, right? Isn't that how we succeed? And so continuing to put those great folks together. So such amazing. I'm blown away.
Love it.
I'm blown away. And I will say this, last thing I'll say too. I tell Sean this all the time. Sometimes I bang on my microphone. Sometimes I, as a parent of a child not on the autism spectrum, I sometimes feel like I'm an outsider, or I feel, sometimes I joke about a fraud, feel like a fraud going to these things, only because I don't have that shared experience of being a parent of a child with autism. And yet I feel like I am just by osmosis and by the connection. And we share so many so many experiences and thoughts and feelings and emotions that the world of special needs, of neurodiverse experiences is definitely where this is all about, where this is all going. It's a shared experience as a community. And so I'm grateful to be able to know you and this resource, and be able to share the resources that we have with you so we can continue to extend this broad web. So yeah,
definitely. Well, we've come to the time in the show where we ask the following question, and I always anticipate the answer. I'm at the edge of my seat in this case. In order to make the world a better place, or our ability to make the world a better place, is tied to our willingness or ability to change ourselves. So with that, give us just one example, if you can, of a belief that you once held dearly, believed strongly, but no longer believe to be true.
It's not one belief, it's the entire paradigm. And I mean that on a bigger level than just our this one experience. I think with the knowledge that we are ignorant no matter where we are, because there's always more to learn. And sometimes everything we know needs to be shattered in order to make room for the truth. As we continue to expand, our knowledge and this is what it is. I would let go of my conditioning, and what I mean by that is the things I was taught, not necessarily with bad intentions, but some of the things I was taught, of course, and replace them with things that I learned as I live.
Love that. That's beautiful.
It is.
Do you want to you're going to comment on that, or is we going to?
No, go ahead.
I say, Hasna, this has been again a great experience and a great conversation, and again, the shared experiences that we have just make us that much more connected. So I've enjoyed this time. I want to thank people who have been able to sign in and give us comments, and for those that are catching us after the fact, please, if you've got comments, you can share. We're going to put the learnautism.com will be in our show notes. So please reach out to them. Please look and see what's available to you. It's an amazing resource. For those listening on podcasts, thanks for joining us. WSTX AM Radio. Thank you folks for joining us. And again, if you want to reach out to us, hit us up at wearejusttwodads@gmail.com. It's all one word, no dashes, no dots, no nothing. We are just TWO, twodads@gmail.com. I want to thank Billy Footwear, who's been a friend of the show and sponsor. And, it's good. I think we're going to put up on the site, we'll put in the show notes a link to Billy Footwear. He does adaptive footwear for folks of all ages and sizes, and has an amazing resource. Sean and I do a biweekly men's support group called The Den, and was up on the screen there for a second, but it'll be in the show notes as well. A form to fill out if you'd like to join The Den. It's free. It's every 2 weeks on a Sunday morning. Dads who often don't find a safe place to have a conversation about what they're going through as a father of a child with special needs. It's a safe place to have a conversation and, again, create that environment of shared experience. So please join us for The Den. There's Billy Footwear's link, 10% off, by the way. If you click on the link and use the Just Two Dads, well, actually, if you use the affiliate link there, you'll get 10% off on your purchase. A lot going on in the world as we sign off, and so for those of us that have loved ones in areas of conflict, God bless you and keep you safe, and may we have some peace at some point in the world. It'll be wonderful to have a day of peace. Start with a day. Let's just start with a day and go on beyond that. And as I say every show, empathy and love. That is really what it's all about. And it's funny because I keep saying, like, now more than ever, and every week it is even more pronounced. Now more than keeps escalating. Now more than ever, have some empathy for the person that is, you never know what they're going through. You don't know what they're dealing with their children, with their spouse, with their loved ones. You have some empathy. Don't make a judgment. Have some empathy. And if you look at the world through lenses of love, it makes all the difference in the world. So empathy and love, folks. Please hug your family. Tomorrow's not promised. So with that, Hasna, thank you for being a guest on our show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to send it to Sean to wrap us up, and we'll end this episode. Amazing. 150, episode number 150. One of the best. I love it.
Yes. Hasna, thank you again. And I want to share again, like now more than ever, that's only because we're at today. Tomorrow, it's going to be more important than it is today to ask more questions and make less statements, to be more childlike and less childish. And then one of the things that we need to embrace, I caught myself the other day. I made this post. I was just down the street from my son's school, and I wasn't late. I had some time to spare, and this person was driving in front of me, and they were driving really slow, and it got on my nerves. And usually when that happens, I go, I have the presence of mind or consciousness to go, man, when I pull up beside you, you better be old. Because if you are, then I can give you some grace. But here's the thing: why do they need to be old to get some level of grace from me? You know why? Because while we don't want to admit it, me, the soldier of love, the agent of change, as I hashtag on my post, we need to admit that we want people to be more like us than we realize. I want you to think like me. I want you to have we talk about the differences that we celebrate and everything. We need to first accept that, no, I might want you to be a little more like me. I want you to root for the same sports team or whatever, despite the fact that it'll be weird if everybody's rooting for the same team. But we want people to be more like us, and we seek that. It takes me back to a poster at my son's middle school. It was a picture of this. It was a drawing, and I think it was Abraham Lincoln, but it was this man. He says, that man over there is nothing like me at all. I must get to know him. And we have to continue to think that way. And it takes effort, because I'm telling you, as conscious as I try to be and everything, I slip into the unconscious thought that, oh, you need to be more like me. We don't realize that. And that's work that we must never, ever tire of. So, to everyone within the sound of my voice, thank you so much. If you're watching us, if you're listening, wherever you might be, we love you, and we've got some great things coming down the line. I just can't wait. I am so thankful and glad to be alive.
For sure. Hasna, thank you again.
Oh, thank you to Sean Hall, our producer in Hawaii.
Thank you, Sean.
And to Nicholas's Journey, who's been following us on Facebook. I got your comment, Nicholas. We'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much. We love you.
Bye, everybody.